Tonia here, your host of The Alchemy of Me, where we navigate the anatomy of humanity through the lens of science and spirituality. Let's unearth the layers and unravel the systems in place that dim who we are and how we live and experience life. On this journey together, we'll weave in an eclectic blend of mind, body, energy, medicine, concepts, tools, and practices that'll nourish the seeds, the fire, that gold of intelligence that is you. This is an opportunity, your opportunity to reclaim, to rediscover, to transform, to alchemize you. The Alchemy of Me show starts now.
Hello, hello. Tonia here, your host of The Alchemy of Me. And we are excited as today, as usual, we are going to fall within the realm of exploring the anatomy of humanity through the lens of science and spirituality. And today I have Sean Padraic here, where we have some interesting things we're going to explore. So Sean is a psycho-spiritual counselor. He is the co-founder of Masculine Mastery, founder of Soul Revival Retreats, host of Follow Your Path podcast, and an entrepreneur. Sean has helped hundreds of clients in taking control of their minds and transmute their internal shadows to life-changing gifts that create an authentic experience of living beyond childhood trauma and survival conditioning. So welcome, Sean. I am so excited to be here. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. It'll get interesting, as it always does when we just start talking. We never know where it's gonna lead us. And I guess before we dive in, is there anything you want to add to that about yourself? Kind of tell people who you are before we get started.
Yeah, well, I just want to say I'm really excited and grateful to be here with you. You know, here we are at the beginning of spring. There's like all this new energy coming in. It feels good. Things are coming back to life, and there's so much happening within us and in the world right now, and just such a epic time in the human story, and we all get to be a part of it. And these conversations, I feel, are so valuable to have, and the things that we're going to be sharing today, I think, are really important things to think about and start to kind of bring into your own life. And so yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm stoked to be here.
Same. And I love that you brought up the, kind of the changing, the equinox, and how I didn't think about this when we first started talking about coming together today. And naturally, as we honor this transition, this time, this balancing of the light and the dark. I love that, and kind of the balancing of the 12 hours of sunlight and darkness, that we come together today to talk about the sacred union of the masculine and the feminine. So yeah, so let's just dive into that.
Can I say too, we did not do that on purpose. It just happened this way.
We just threw it out there that day, which is today. So I just thought of that this morning, actually, that was kind of serendipitous, essentially.
So aligned. Perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, let's dive in. So just thinking about, where we're going, before we dive too deep, let's maybe stay high level. Let's just look at what are we talking about here with the masculine and feminine energy, and what does that look like? And then also too, like, if you want to start just bringing in that sacred union, like, what does that look like to you?
Yeah, this is a really big topic, and I think a lot of people are starting to talk about this more. But when we talk about, the nature of reality, consciousness, like what are the two pieces, the polarities that make that up? And that would be the feminine and the masculine polarities, or energies, or aspects of consciousness. And this is how creation exists, right? You have the feminine, which is the infinite imagination, it's creation. And the masculine is what brings it into form. It's what crystallizes it and allows it to be part of this physical plane. And we've had so much conditioning, and we were never taught these things. So it's like when we hear those terms, we go right to the gender stuff. We go right to male, female, and it takes a little time to get used to this idea of like, oh, these are two energies that we have inside of each one of us. And if one of these two gets out of balance, we start to see issues that occur. And when we can understand or understand these two aspects together, and when they're harmonized, when that sacred union occurs and they're operating as one instead of one fighting the other, or one imbalanced and strengthened over the other and the other one's weak, this can create such profound shifts in our life. And it helps us to recognize the mechanics of the reality that we're in. And it just helps us to operate as humans so much more. So it's like, this is such an important topic to get into. And it's like, we really, it's so pivotal to get beyond the gender stuff, because I'm a man and I've been at this point in my life more in my feminine energy. And so there an imbalance occurred there. And now I'm in this place of balancing things to get more into my masculine and bring those two into more of a homeostasis type place. So, yeah, I think that can be like a good basis for where we start to build off of with this.
And I love that you mentioned that, kind of like your kind of where you came from and how this really resonates with you and why it's so powerful. And I also appreciate and love that I came from the complete other side. So mine is, I've always had more of like the very masculine dominant, the foundation, the structure, coming in a farm kid, going into the corporate world, and really no touch with, completely out of touch with my emotional feminine side, actually rejected it. And so I love that, of course, again, there's this balance that brought us here together to talk about this, because it is like you said, it is not specific to gender, so it's like you honoring the fact that you came in, with the stronger feminine, me honoring the fact I came in with the stronger masculine, and that we can come together and see the beauty of kind of harmonizing that a bit. So I love that, once again, kind of that harmony. I want to so can you talk a little more about, you mentioned the inner stand, kind of that word and what what that is, and what that maybe what that means to you.
Yeah. So it's not just this like spiritual term that spiritual people use, like, oh, understand this or that. To me, the meaning of it is you actually embody it. You understand it beyond concept. It's landed down here, and that's what makes things real, right? And the term understand, you're standing under something. It's like something's over you. And just this could be a whole other episode too, right? It's like casting spells with your words, the power of words. So if you're under something, you're not actually comprehending it. You're placing it somewhere kind of beyond you. You're under it somewhere. So understanding it is like, okay, I've embodied it. It's out of the mind. It's not a concept anymore. It's real. And it's landed for me in that way.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, because it kind of levels you. It doesn't put you in a place where there's this. It puts you at the same level, essentially, with yourself and feeling into it.
Right. So like we would say to like authority figures back in the day when we were kids, right? Like they would say, teachers might say, do you understand me? Or your parents, do you understand me? You're standing under me. I'm above you. We're not equal. And like that gets in there so deep. And these words play into that. So when I first heard understand, it just resonated with me. I'm like, the energy of that feels way better and different to me. Yeah,
it kind of brings me back when you mentioned because it's immediately then you think of the time that happened. Everybody has, I'm sure everybody listening has an immediate experience that they can call upon that resonates. And I want to speak to that a little bit if we can. when we are littles, kiddos, and, we are we're looking up at the authoritative figures, because that is the structure in which we exist in right now, or did. And, we ask a question and we're curious. We have this general curiosity as little ones. We want to know more. It's the why. And as a parent, I can say there's so many times that you can answer that, with the same level of curiosity, or wanting to, really honor that. Do you think, I'm curious, like, what are we at a very young age? Are we conditioned with the response from our authoritative figures? Are we conditioned to, I don't know, like, it's the why, and then the response is because I said so. Is that a response that kind of tells us at that early age to not ask the question, to not come out of that understand, like, I just need to understand, I need to not ask questions, where it's like it removes that, where it's that the inner stand at that moment.
Yeah. It's like and it's through no one's fault, really. It's just all conditioning, like being passed down from generation to generation. And that's the cool part about what's happening now is we're writing an entirely new story around that. And that's why, like, parenting is such a big deal, because if you can allow your child to be in that place of freedom where they think for themselves, and you ask them, hey, what do you think about this? Instead of imposing on them your own thoughts and ways of thinking and your perception of the world and life. And even just like finding a balance with that too is so powerful. And I see it with parents now, like bringing the questions back to them. Well, what do you think about this? And I think that's so beautiful to see. And I know we're going to get into this at some point in the show, but that structure that was given to us by society, by our parents, by, mom, dad, teacher, minister, coach, whoever, it kind of crystallized this structure that we understood life from, that we accepted life from, that we said, oh yeah, this is what it is. And then this is what it's going to be the rest of the way. And so we never really come up with our own subjective interpretation of that, our own meaning of that. We just kind of follow along with that structure that was laid out for us.
It's almost like a bypass, right? We're bypassing any kind of thought process. We're just, the checking out, going into almost like an autopilot for our lives, and instead of that internal dialogue that is available to each of us.
Totally. Yeah.
So you mentioned the structure piece. Why don't we just go there now?
Okay.
Let's dive into that. So, what does too much structure look like? What does not enough structure look like? Do you want to go there? Do you want to tell me a little bit about that? What that means to you?
Sure. Yeah. So just to like relate this back to the masculine, feminine dynamics that we were talking about at the beginning, structure is the masculine side of consciousness. It's necessary. We need to have that because the imagination is infinite. Creation is infinite. There's a million, and we're seeing this made more manifest in today's current age with technology. There's just a million options going on. There's a million things we could do, a million places we could put our attention, and it's very overwhelming. And a lot of people, including myself, can get stuck in analysis paralysis, thinking too much because there's so many options. So it's important to have a level of structure, to have the masculine side of you integrated, where it's like, okay, I know what I want to create. here's how we bring it, or the imagination says, I know what I want to create through my desire. And then the masculine's like, okay, here's how we make this happen. Here's how we gather the materials. Here's how we take the action to bring this into form. And in the context of my own life, and I think the point I really want to bring in here is, I was given a structure like many of us where I barely had to think about that, right? I go to school until I'm 18 years old. And then it's like, oh, you go to college and then you do that for 4 years. And then it's like, oh, entry-level job. So there's really no space to, kind of find yourself or start to ask the questions of like, what is life? Who am I? What's my purpose of being here? What do I want to explore? You're just kind of shepherded like a sheep to each next stage. And that's the programmed structure, right? So when I popped out of that and I quit my corporate job and career and leapt into the unknown, I felt so vulnerable and naked and like, what am I doing? I have no idea how to exist outside of this structure. I don't really know how to even think for myself outside of this. And so that was a very challenging period of time. And I think that's something that people want to avoid. So they stay in the structure, even though it's not serving them, even though it's not helpful to them. They know it doesn't resonate with them. They would rather have that safety than abandon that and go to a place where you kind of have to start over and you have to build your own understanding and foundation of what your structure will look like that supports you in your soul, in your path, and what makes you happy and fulfilled. And this is, I would imagine, something that a lot of people are going through right now. So very relevant topic. And I wanted to share that because I'm sure people can relate to that in some way.
No, that is a great example. And I agree with you. I think there's a lot of people that are feeling that tug if they haven't already gone through that process. In the last few years, there are a lot of people that have gone through that and feel that connection, that maybe there's confusion there. So maybe just bringing some of that clarity to it, I would think, knowing why those feelings are coming up for them. So holding that thought, we're going to take a quick break here and we'll continue to explore this. We'll continue to talk more about this concept around structure, lack thereof, too much structure, and how that looks like. And when we could contact you after the show, if you wanted to share that would be great. Sure.
Yeah, I'd say Instagram's a great way to do it. I think my handle is Sean.Graves_. I also host a podcast called Follow Your Path podcast, and that's on Spotify, all the things, iTunes. I would say those would probably be the main ways to kind of, and then my website is followyourpath.live. So those are all the different ways to get in touch with me or see what else is going on.
Okay. Thank you. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. I am here with Sean, and we are going to continue our discussion around masculine and feminine balance, rebalancing within. And we left off with structure and kind of where that lives in our lives and how that feels to us. And perhaps there was a little bit of a resonance here when Sean was sharing his story about where he kind of has gone through this journey on his own with structure and how it's played out in his life. And so just continuing that discussion a little bit more, Sean, let's go a little deeper. So from there, how that transformation. So once you made that shift in your life, once you shifted out of kind of that place, got naked, essentially, can you talk a little bit more about that and like how, the struggle is real. And I do think that for each of us that have gone through this or haven't gone through this and feel that connection to knowing that you are not alone. right? We're all in this together.
Yeah.
We see you, we hear you. It's not easy. And so can you just speak a little bit more to that and kind of like as a counselor, as a leader, as a friend, as a human, how, like, what could you say to others?
Yeah. Well, this is a very exciting time. If you look at the history of humanity, this is a time where we have the freedom to choose really the direction we want to take our lives. And we get to finally be like, oh, what is it that I truly want to create and express in this lifetime? Because all the prior generations, we were kind of stuck doing shit we didn't want to do. We were stuck in this place of like survivalism, and this is the natural progression of evolution. And so like we've arrived now in a place where we're seeking freedom of expression, freedom to live the way that we want to live, and we have that opportunity now. And so we still have a lot of that in our DNA, like fear, and you could say slavery consciousness. You could say kind of the newer term, I guess, for that would be employee consciousness, where you're used to being told what to do. You're used to being in that structure that's outside of you, that someone else created, that you're existing within. And so when you leave that, right, if you're pursuing your dream and you're making that leap of faith into the unknown, which is the next phase of your life, where you're the chooser, you're the creator now, just know it's natural. That fear is going to be there. You were residing in that level of consciousness for a long time. And so it really is so important to have compassion with yourself and not beat yourself up or shame yourself. Because I did all of these things. I'm like, oh, I'm 31 years old. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. I'm living out of my car. Like, why did I do this? And
Crushing it.
there was so much shame, instead of the zooming out and being like, hey, you're in a completely new paradigm. Like, you just got here. You're getting used to the lay of the land. You're learning how to be sovereign within yourself. You're not going to get this overnight. And there is a lot of fear within your own genetics that's being cleared out from your family line, from the prior generations, because everything just gets handed forward, right? Like within our DNA is the stories of those who came before us. And a lot of those stories are limitation, fear, lack, scarcity, separation, all the things. And so you start to purge that, and these things come right up to the forefront when you give yourself space, again, outside of that structure that was imposed on you. And all you can do is love everything that shows up in the best way that you can, and to let your body feel it, be in your feminine, right? Because as a man, and from a lot of men out there, we don't let ourselves feel. We distract, we avoid, we're always doing stuff. I don't know if you can swear on this or not, but we're always doing stuff. And women do this too. Like, okay, men and women, we all do this. We, because that's a culture, right? It's like grind, hustle, get at it, always be doing stuff. Your worth is decided on your production and what you're doing in the world. We always ask each other, what are you doing? Like, what do you do for work? And I think that conversation is starting to change. I think the questions are starting to change. And so, yeah, I'm just offering for anyone listening to this that's in that phase or thinking about it. You have everything that you need. And this is where trust comes in. You will learn how to trust yourself. You learn how to trust life. And this is like an exciting part of the game that feels scary, but it's necessary, and it's going to get you where you want to go.
I love that. Because you're right. I mean, it is scary. And it's interesting though, and you describe that. I mean, and just being honest, you're living out of your car. And sometimes that's what it takes for us to let all of all of the stuff fall away, right? Because that's how we can fully step into who we are. And, you know, so that's one side of it. And just you talking about that reminded me of a conversation I had with somebody. This was maybe 5-6 years ago. And they had just started a new job. And I just asked, you know, how's your job? Do you love it? It's okay. Oh, okay. You know, it's fine. I mean, I'll retire in 20 years. So, you know, I only have to deal with it for 20 years. And it just made me think of like, what the hell are we doing here? You know, like no judgment, no judgment. It's like, what am I doing here? Because what it did for me was it made me realize, what am I doing? Like, how is this conversation going to affect me? And it wasn't, so it might've been a little longer ago, because it was when I ended up leaving my job. It was kind of a realization of like, that person was a mirror for me.
Yeah.
Because I was having the exact same feeling. It was like the little thing inside of me saying like, okay, it's time. This isn't you. This isn't you. You have the same number of years too. Yeah. Until you would retire, whatever that means. So just kind of an interesting curiosity. And then I also love what you said about the question. You know, it's like, what's your name? It's Sean. What do you do? Mm-hmm. And I've always felt very uncomfortable with that question and not really sure how to answer it. And so I do love now that, you know, it's like that question will still come up, but it's not the second question all the time. And or it's not the third time, maybe it's the fourth. So maybe eventually, you know, it's like something else, like, what do you like to do, comes up as the second question. Why are you here? You know, there's other things like that.
What excites you? What do you feel passionate about? What are you like interested in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So I love that. So I want to transition here a little bit, just to, because I know we could talk for hours on this, but I want to go into the kind of shifting into the balancing of what this could look like. So, you know, we talked a little bit about the imbalance in too much structure, maybe not enough structure. So looking at more of what balance could look like. So exploring maybe the sacred union between the masculine and the feminine with respect to like logic and imagination, and what that means to you. And if you want to just all of this is so related and interconnected, right? So your logic, your reasoning, rational mind, the left side of your brain, the machine part of things, that's what you would say is the masculine side of things. The feminine is your imagination. It's your intuition. It's the place that you dream from, the place that you can imagine new possibilities from. And this part of the structure, again, that we inherited was very rigid, very left brain oriented, very linear, right? Like our learning process at school was a very linear way. Like the imagination was not something that was valued or cultivated at all. So many of us got put on the left side of our brain, and then we oriented our life from that place where you look at everything and it's just like a step-by-step process. Everything's just like super linear, and the imagination, like the logic and the imagination start to become at odds. The logic doesn't trust the imagination. It shuts it down. It says, who are you to dream? That's not possible. You can't do that. It's like a bad parent, like it, and only because of the way that we learned it. And so like my process when I did jump into the next paradigm, the next chapter of life, I noticed that my logic was very much at war and would shut down my imagination, which is like, oh, we could do this. Like, oh, let's explore that. And this side would come on and be like, here's all the reasons we can't do it.
And I know people know this very well. It's like that this side will have a great idea, or it will desire to do something, right? Because what is desire? It's like that's life wants to experience something through you, through uniquely who you are and the way that you would experience it. Life wants that. That's where the desire is born out of. And then the reasoning side kicks in and says, you don't have the money, you don't have the time, you don't have the talent, you don't have the blah, 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 blah. And then it kills this side. And now remember, your imagination is tied to your inner child. So it's basically like you're the bad parent telling your inner child they can't do what they want to do. And if you do that enough, which we're very well practiced in, your inner child just stops dreaming and stops imagining. And yet, this is what you need to create the life that you came here to live, where you feel passionate, where you actually trust yourself and know that you can support yourself by doing things that you love, things that excite you, things that make you feel alive, that turn you on. And most people are operating in the prison of the logic that's like, no, stay in line, stay with what you've known, stay in the familiar, don't go into the unknown. Bad things happen there. And the inner child within all of us is so desperate to be recognized and be, have us put them on our shoulders and be like, hey, it's safe for you to play. It's safe for you to dream and to be here. Because for many of us as kids, our parents, society, teachers told us it wasn't okay. And then told us, here's how you have to do it. Here's what it looks like. This is what life is. And we took on that paradigm, and that's where the imbalance starts to come in. So like, we want to bring these two together. We want to marry the logic and the imagination together so they're in harmony. So the logic says, hey, I love that dream. We can do that. Here's how we can do it. Here's the materials that are needed. Here's the steps we can take to bring that into form instead of just shooting it down. Like, this to me is a really big deal because it's unconscious and people are playing this out and destroying their inner child, destroying their dreams, and staying in the prison. This is what we would call the mental prison of the reasoning mind. This has become the dominant side. So yeah, it's a whole thing. This is a big topic.
Yeah. And I love it because it is it's the taking ownership too. I mean, we're adults now, right? We get to make decisions for ourselves and we get to choose. There's that whole free will piece to this all.
Yeah.
And the understanding of that, it's like, I'm still that 7-year-old Tonia. Like, that has not, I'm still her, but does she get to come out and play? Or is she going to be the grumpy, corporate mom, 9 to 5, whatever? It doesn't matter. But, it's like acknowledging all of these different things at play. You mentioned that, parents and the cultural piece, like all of the pieces that affect us and our inner child, and not in a way that's blaming, right? It's kind of like the fruit. It's the seed, the opportunity. Those experiences, as hard as they can be, as challenging as they can be, are those seeds within us that we get to use to bring it back, that balance, to bring that balance into in our lives. And it's hard, right? I mean, this shit is hard.
It's the hardest thing we're ever going to do, like make this transformation and shed the old identity and the old skin that we were used to living in. But it's all part of the game. This is why we're here. And we have everything inside of us needed to go through this process. And I love what you said. Like, there's no blaming, because when you start to go through this for the first time, like, and you're really doing it, you'll notice a lot of victim stuff come out, and you want to blame your parents. You get pissed at your parents. You get pissed at society. Why you did this to me? Like, this is why I'm this way. And that's natural. That's okay. Like, that's going to be there. But eventually you come back and take responsibility of like, okay, great. That was all part of it. I'm in this place now. I have to own and be responsible for where I want to go from here. And if I'm in victimhood, I can't do that. So I have to let all of that go and recognize it was all perfect. It was all the way life designed it to bring me to where I'm at right now.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's kind of a nugget, I think, for the takeaway for people. It is like that victimhood, kind of where we can choose to be versus where we maybe are.
Yeah.
And so we have time now for one more break. So before we do that, again, Sean, did you want to share one more time with everyone how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, would love to.
Please.
Yeah, just like, again, like Instagram, Sean.Graves _ is a great place to connect. My website's followyourpath.live, LIVE. And my podcast is Follow Your Path Podcast. If you resonate with things we're talking about, yeah, my show is all about these things too. And these conversations are just like really nice to kind of flood your awareness with, to get you thinking about these things more and to start to ask your own questions. And because we're in a big process right now, like we're really shifting. It's going there, you know? So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And we will be right back. We are back. We are back. I am here with Sean, and we are talking about the masculine and feminine balance and that sacred union within each of us. So as we transition here, before we transition, actually, we want to kind of wrap up our discussion here about some of the imbalances that can happen within us. So Sean, I'll just hand it over to you. Kind of let's talk about that a little bit more before we offer up some tools or maybe some curiosities around how to bring ourselves back into balance.
Yeah. There's a lot we could say to this part. I think in terms of importance and like what I see in the world the most right now is, we said this earlier too. It's the doing. It's the constantly moving and physically active. Like there's very little rest happening, and this is part of the conditioning culturally, the grind hustle culture. So that's being in our masculine frame. That's being on that side of things, and we're not allowing our feminine to be part of the equation. And this is in large part, we're using that to run away from feeling. So we're imbalanced over on the action side, constantly doing stuff, constantly avoiding and distracting through physical activity or through consumption of media or however we're doing that. And we're not giving ourselves the proper space to feel. Mm-hmm. The feeling is where the intuition comes in. The intuition, to me, is the new technology coming alive inside of us that's going to start to be the compass and guide us through life, instead of the mental activity, which is more on the masculine side of things too. Mm-hmm. So massive imbalance across the board between being, doing, resting, and activity. And if we're not in balance with those things, then we start to experience burnout. We start to experience high levels of stress. Our minds are processing so much information. It's on overdrive. Okay. And we're neglecting the part of us that allows us to heal and to actually integrate what we're learning. Because like I fell into this trap for a long time. I was addicted to like self-help stuff and improving myself, and even spiritual information and things that resonated for me, things that felt really good. But I was just always listening to stuff, always taking things in, so many inputs. And I wasn't giving myself the space to actually integrate it and embody it, which would come through the resting and the contemplation, where I'm seeing how that piece could fit into my life and where I've been missing something in my life that this could help with. And it was always on to the next thing, right? Because it's the intellect. Mm-hmm. The intellect, again, is what was strengthened through schooling, through cultural programming. and the imagination was devalued and not strengthened. And so it's like a weak muscle, whereas the intellect's become this like super strong muscle. And the way that I like to look at this too is like, because of this, people are going through life thinking their way through everything. Everything's linear. Everything's a step-by-step process. Everything is what I see is what I believe, right? When I look out in my life, what's happening, that's the truth. That's what is. I'm tied to the five senses. Whereas the imagination, our spiritual side of things, our mystical creation side of things would say, hey, there's a lot more than that. There's way more to this life than what you're seeing right now, because that's a small box of perception. And again, the strengthened intellect would be like, what do you know? I don't trust you. I have to see it to believe it. And so that, like, hopefully for people, this side is starting to wake up and say, no. We are so much more than that. Let's come together and let's create a harmony where we're as one, and we're recognizing like, okay, I can open up to things that are way beyond what I've known, beyond memory, beyond my past. There's so much more. I'm an iceberg. Mm-hmm. And we don't have to fight these two different sides of ourselves. We don't have to keep swinging one end to the other, because when I was too much in my feminine, I rebelled the logic, the reasoning. I saw it as controlling. I'm like, no, not doing that. I'm going to stay in the openness. And then nothing ever gets done. And you kind of float and nothing comes into form. And you're too much on the emotional side. Everything's emotional. And then like, there's no kind of clear steps or goals to move towards. So this could be a 3-hour conversation. There's so much to this, but it's just important to know yourself as these two aspects. And let's look at it real quick through the lens of healing. Mm-hmm. When you're going through this process and your uncomfortable emotions are there, something gets triggered, it's super uncomfortable in your nervous system. What do we do mostly? Our strategy is to avoid it, go somewhere else, distract. But if we start to actually allow the healing process, it starts there. Allow. The feeling's here. I'm not resisting it. This is a part of me that's coming up that wants to be seen, wants to be acknowledged and brought into wholeness, because it got separated at some point, childhood mostly. And if we can't allow it to be there, instead of being in resistance and pushing it away, no, I don't want to feel this. No, I don't like that. We'll never heal. We'll never expand and evolve. So you have to allow it. That's your feminine. Allow it, accept it. It's here. It's in me. This is a part of me that's scared. It got triggered because some kind of, PTSD or bad experience from my past. And you let it express, you let it process. And then your beautiful masculine side gets to come in with truth, because you didn't have the truth when you were a child. You didn't have the truth when you were in those years of trying to survive and adapt and fit in. Now you get to be this for yourself, where you get to alchemize and shift that misinterpretation from back when you were 7 to, hey, here's what's true for us now. So it's like a good father coming in and redirecting the child's erroneous thinking into correctness again, into truth. Here's what's actually true. And you do that after you've allowed the feeling to be there. Because if you don't allow it, it's like your inner child's coming to you and being like, hey, I'm scared. I'm feeling like really intense right now. And then you're like, not now. I don't want to deal with that. Get out of here. And imagine doing that, like, Tonia, to your son, like, not now. I don't have time. Yeah. That's what we're doing to ourselves.
It is interesting when we take that, like you just said, if I was to talk to my son the way that I have noticed some of the internal dialogue that has come up over the years of the things that we say to ourselves, and we all do it. And so it's again, not being hard on ourselves, but this is just the playground in which we can play for kind of that self-love, self-discovery, the healing that you're talking about. But my goodness, some of the words. I mean, I would never imagine talking to him like that. It actually, it does bring in some sadness there. So, as we transition, we kind of wrap things up here. You just kind of gave a beautiful, healing practice that we can use to kind of help ourselves to identify maybe some of the spaces in our lives that, recognizing maybe where we're ignoring or not feeling ready to identify our more the feminine side, allowing more space to feel into that. Do you have is there anything else, other things that you want to kind of dial into that could be helpful for people as they start to explore this rebalancing of the masculine and feminine energy?
Yes. Yeah. So you need both sides. They make up who you are and the consciousness inside of you. They're both beautiful in their own ways. There's going to be a time where truth has to penetrate, it has to cut through the bullshit, the limiting beliefs, and it has to tell it to you like it is. And sometimes we want to avoid that, right? And then there's going to be times where you go to your feminine side and you nurture yourself. You have compassion for yourself, patience for yourself. You rest, you give yourself some space. And then there's going to be time for action. Like, all right, we're going hard right now. We're putting all of our focus here. This is the goal we have. Let's do it. And when these two can coexist in a balanced place, and that is where we start to really become the best of who we are. And the more we can experience our human nature in this way, oh, wow, I'm this multidimensional being that can hold both of these in a superposition at the same time. I don't have to abandon one to jump on the other. They're actually both going on at the same time. That's when a new level of mastery starts to kick in. And you can consciously know, like, okay, here's where I got to bring in my masculine right now. I'm in that season. I'm in, these next couple of weeks, it's going to be about that. And then I'm going to make sure to prioritize just as much my rest, my receiving, my allowing of what things are there to be there. And you'll have so much more awareness on this, and it will become part of your life, and you'll know yourself this way through practice, through awareness, through contemplation. And this is evolution. We're leaving behind the survivalism, all the mental activity. I navigate my life just through the mental plane. We're now marrying the thinking, the mental plane with the feeling. And your intuition's kind of like a mix of both of those things, right? Where it's like, go here, do this. And it just knows. Mm-hmm. And that is really exciting to me. And I think this is starting to really awaken in humanity right now.
Yes. Oh, well, it has been a pleasure, Sean. It has been, I can't believe the time is already over.
Oh my God.
I feel like we're going to have to continue this conversation at a later date. So stay tuned for that, everyone. So before, I guess, as we wrap up, if there's anything else you want to share with anyone or, our listeners, while you're here, you've already shared how they can contact you. If there's anything else you want to bring in?
Yeah. And I appreciate you giving a space for that. So I'm starting a group coaching program in April, and it's called The Whole Story. And it's all about writing an entirely new narrative of your life that's actually chosen and created by who you are now, not from the stories and the beliefs and the narratives that were inherited by you at birth from your ancestors, or what was imposed upon you from society and, your parents and all the things, but one that's actually consciously from you and your heart and your soul and who you uniquely are. Because that is going to be the storyline that gives you the most fulfilling life experience, that allows you to be the most of what you were created to be. And that is what I just so I get very excited to think about the prospect of a planet where everyone is doing what they love and what they're passionate about. And just when you hear that, if there's any part of you that's like, well, I don't know about that. I don't know if I can do that. Like I have to be blah, blah, blah. I have bills to pay. Just pay attention to that and ask yourself, really, is that me being in my sovereignty and knowing that I'm a creator and knowing that I have the power of the universe inside of me, and where I flow my life force and attention is what will create everything? Or am I staying in the limitation game that isn't even mine? That has nothing to do with me, that I just agreed to when I was 5. And so this is like, yeah, this program is all around awareness on this, building a new self-esteem, a new self-concept and story. And I am super excited about it. And the last words that I will say for people, wherever you are right now, whatever's happening, whatever you're moving through, going through, growing through, you're exactly where you need to be. It's perfect. You're getting what you need. Trust that. And then allow yourself to move forward into the unknown and know that everything is unfolding for your highest good. Truly, actually.
Amen. Well, thank you, Sean, and thank you to everyone that was listening today or 10 years from now. We are so glad that we were able to save this sacred space, this container with you here today. If you want to reach out to me, my email is tonia@thelifeboost.com, or my website is toniajohnson.com. And I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you for listening to The Alchemy of Me, where we navigate the anatomy of humanity through the lens of science and spirituality. For more mind-body energy medicine concepts, tools, and practices to nourish the seeds, the light, the fire, that gold of intelligence that is you, tune in every first and third Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on transformationtalkradio.com. For more information about me and my work, please visit toniajohnson.com. That's toniajohnson.com.